Welcome to the NEPA Scene Podcast. We're coming to you live from Cole Creative in downtown Wilkes-Barre. I'm Rich Howells. I'm the founder and editor of NEPA Scene. As you can see, Johnny is not with us tonight. His son got sick, so he's staying home with him. I totally get that, but we're definitely going to see him Friday for the benefit, which we'll talk about. Tonight, we're here with two women involved in the NEPA Women's March coming up this Saturday, January 19th in Wilkes-Barre. Cindy from Action Together, Northeastern Pennsylvania, and West Pittston singer-songwriter Tori. Tori is going to play an acoustic song for us at the end of the show, and we're going to talk about the purpose of the Women's March and what they hope to accomplish. The women's rights in 2019, what Action Together is and what they do, elections, a little bit of NEPA politics. There's some hot topics coming up recently, Tori's original music, and much, much more. So please stay tuned for the full show. We would love to hear from you. We would love to hear your opinions, unless you're a nasty incel who has nothing better to do than troll. We would love to hear your comments down below. So by all means, please feel free to give your opinions, your thoughts, your questions for our guests here tonight, anything you want to say. We would love to hear from you down below. So please stay tuned for the full hour. We have plenty of content coming up for you. But before we get to the interview, we have some sponsors to plug and some beers to crack open. Not for this young lady because she's underage. I'm making that very clear right now. But for me and Cindy here. So Beer Boys in Wilkes-Barre has 72 beers on tap. They give us one of these gigantic crowlers every week. We have Saugatuck Maple Blueberry. We have Newport Storm Blueberry Ale and some Miller Lite over here. So, what do you think? We have a choice between two blueberries.
I like the middle one.
This one, Newport Storm. That sounds pretty good too. I don't know if we've had that one on the show. The other one we've had, Maple Blueberry, tastes like a blueberry pancakes essentially.
Does it?
Yeah, it's pretty great. A little rich, but very good if that's your thing. So. That for you.
How is it?
Cheers.
Cheers. That's good.
That is good.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight is Beer Boys Glass Night, so stop down for a $1.50 Miller Lite in a free Miller Lite glass or a $4 Yards Brewing Brawler in a free Yards glass. And they have a half-price happy hour on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays from 9 to 11, Fridays and Saturdays from 8 till midnight. And their huge anniversary event is coming up, 19 Beers for 19 Years, this Saturday, January 19th, from 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. So maybe after the Women's March, if you want to go grab a drink, you can head over to Beer Boys. They're going to have 19 different kinds of Susquehanna Brewing in stock, including stuff that you can't get anywhere else. So we've had Susquehanna Brewing on the show before. We love their stuff. One of the best local brewers right here out of Pittston. So make sure to check that out. DJ Kenton is also playing upstairs from 10 to 2. I had a great time at the event last year, so I highly recommend you go this year, not just because they're a sponsor, but we love Beer Boys, and they always have really good stuff there and great service. So make sure that you check that out. We also want to plug the V-Spot, one of the most popular bars in Northeastern Pennsylvania, with live entertainment every night of the week. This week, they have London Force Duo on Thursday, reggae band My El Soul, who we've had on this show before, straight from Jamaica on Friday, jukebox party band Lightweight on Saturday, also a great local band, and DJ Huff is hosting karaoke on Sunday nights. So thank you to both the V-Spot and Beer Boys, too, for donating to the Howells Family Benefit. We have that coming up this Friday, January 18th. Those who follow us on Facebook are probably absolutely sick of hearing about it. We've posted about it a million times. We did a whole show on it last week. We had a whole bunch of guys on and had a good time talking about that. Lifer, Behind the Gray, The Crowning, Send Request, Anytime Soon, Noxon, Nate Williams, Zach Hammond, and Dan Hopple will all perform at the Kirby Center in Wilkes-Barre this Friday, January 18th. So we hope to see you there. Weather impending. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit too. But I think the weather so far should be okay for Friday. Saturday it's kind of iffy, so we'll talk about that. But please make sure that you come out if you can. If you can't, there's plenty of links on our Facebook if you want to donate to the family or anything like that. It's my parents and my brother's house that burned down. So if you can donate anything, please come to the show. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to have basket raffles from local businesses. Those who are looking for any kind of update, my mom's doing okay. She actually is home from the hospital now. She's recovering nicely. Her burns look a lot better than we expected them to at this point in her recovery. Her one arm she can't really lift too well, so there's kind of issues there, but that's something I think she'll be able to overcome. She's taken some time off of work and everything like that to handle that. My dad's back at work, so everybody else is good. They're all living at my house. It's a little crazy. It's a little hectic, but thank you everybody for your support. Anybody who donated or anything, it's really greatly appreciated. My family never really had a lot, but they always gave a lot to everybody, including myself. And that's probably, one of the reasons that we're talking about this tonight is my mother was always a big influence on me growing up. All the stuff that she likes, I like. All her sense of humor are very much the same. She raised me on Monty Python and stuff like that when it wasn't even on television and stuff like that. She'd put in the tapes and whatever. So I've always got along really well with my mom, and it's been tough seeing her go through this. But it's definitely made me the man that I am today in a lot of ways. And women are so important. Despite what certain internet comments will tell you, or if you dive into the YouTube comments on the Gillette ad, do not do that. I do not recommend that at all. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But women are important, and they are our future in a lot of ways. So what I want to talk about first is, before we get into the actual event itself, what is Action Together? What is this organization and what do they do?
Well, Action Together is a grassroots activist organization. We look to educate people and advocate for people on the issues that are important today. We do a lot of different things. We do some events. This is our first March, so we're very excited about it. Mm-hmm. But we've done rallies on all different topics. On the opioid problem in our valley especially. We've talked about, had rallies about Trump showing his tax returns that way back in the day, environmental issues, DACA recipients. We also do things like we have people coming in to talk about their passion, what they are fighting for, and different organizations that are around the area. We have worked on campaigns. We've encouraged our members to run for office. That's a really important part of our work, becoming involved in politics locally to make changes, where we live that affect, pretty much everybody. But we do things like postcard writing, letter writing, calls to your legislators, anything really that is in response to something that might be coming up, in the world today that, we're all, it's everybody's business, it's everybody's responsibility, and we're just kind of out there to help people speak and, say what they need to say and get what they need to get, basically.
It's tough to get people involved in local politics. National politics seems every 4 years, and then everybody suddenly cares before there's a presidential election. And then after that, we kind of forget about it because we're sick of hearing about it and talking about it. Mm-hmm. But the issues don't go away.
No,
they still affect us all the time. I think it's important for, and most people I don't think even know who their own legislators are, Right.
And to tell you the truth, until the last several years, I didn't either. I think that's very common for people not to, kind of pay attention to those things. I've had those conversations with family members. Oh, I don't want to watch that. You know, I don't want to get upset. But I mean,
Right.
these things happen whether we watch them or not. And it's, you know, it's our job to be aware and to try to help, you know, in any way we can. Because we, you know, I think, especially with this administration, we see things happening that aren't fair, that aren't good for us, for the regular person. And locally is how we, you know, we start that change.
So what was the what got you involved personally? Why did you say, all right, I want to join this organization and you know, get involved with local politics?
Well, I was always, you know, that advocate for the underdog kind of person, and I think that, well, I know what spurred me on to really become active is the election. You know, I didn't believe, like a lot of people, I didn't believe he was going to be elected until I stood in line to vote, and I was listening to everybody talk, and I'm like, oh my God, I think we're in trouble, and we are. So.
We absolutely are.
We are. Yeah.
I don't think anybody can, you know, either side can deny that at this point. When you have a long-running government shutdown, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better at this point, and nobody seems to be able to sit down and talk about anything. So this is the first Women's March that you're doing. You know, obviously the Women's March took off, you know, a couple of years ago in Washington. The one in Philly, I believe last year, was like setting records about how many people they thought were going to turn out and stuff like that. So
they've been very, very successful. I was at the first march in Washington with my daughter. I brought my daughter, and it was an awesome experience. It was just so inspirational and so motivating, and the people, I mean, there were so many people, and everybody got along. Everybody, you know, there was no problems. Last year I went to New York City, again with my daughter, and that was a great experience also. Didn't match that first year, though, you know, so
Right.
then we got permission from the National Women's March organization to do a march for ourselves in Northeast PA. So we, you know, we ran with it. We were very excited about the idea, and here we are.
now, what has gone into the preparation for an event like that? What can people expect coming into this?
Well, we're going to start at Kirby in the pavilion, and we have some awesome speakers lined up. We have Dr. Lynn Coslet Charlton. I'm sorry, Lynn. Who has done a lot of work in Washington for women's health issues. We have Sherry Jacobson from Moms Demand Action, which is a, you know, gun sense, you know, gun violence prevention, working towards legislation for, you know, common sense laws around gun ownership. And we have Gerlene Leroy, who is an attorney, a local attorney, and also the president of the NAACP. We have Mary Rapatch, who is from Queer NEPA. Who did I forget? We have Kadita Kenner as our keynote speaker. She is involved in an organization called Why Courts Matter, and they keep an eye on all the legislation that's coming down and the court appointments and those kind of things. How many do I have there? I think I have everyone. We have we have someone from NEPA now that's going to do a little at the end, along with our president of Action Together, Alicia Hoffman-Mirilovich. So, I mean, we're very excited. These are all very interesting. They have really good things to say to motivate us. I'm hoping that we have, after the speakers, we're all really ready to march and have our, you know, voices heard. We're going to do a march around Wilkes-Barre and end on the square, where we'll have some. We're going to have some vendors in Kirby Park. We're going to have some, you know, a couple food trucks and some things for sale. On the square, we'll have organizations that are, you know, looking to maybe get volunteers. We're going to have our membership table there. Hopefully some people will want to, you know, get involved. It's a great group of people. And then, I was hoping that it would be like kind of like a celebration at the end. We have Tori playing, we have a couple other bands playing, and some of the local businesses are hopefully going to be out and doing specials for us. So I'm hoping people hang around and, just kind of get to know each other and, enjoy the day. Hopefully it won't be a blizzard yet.
Do you guys have a snow date or anything planned?
No.
It's
no,
kind of
we'll be
one of
doing
those,
it.
like, it's got to happen.
Yeah. Someone said, what if it snows? I'm like, where are your mittens? What can I tell you, Bundle up.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. But I'm really excited. I'm one of those, I just love a good rally. I love a good march. I think that, it makes me feel like, it motivates me. It makes me feel like, we're doing something that's important and it's going to make a difference for people. And hopefully that'll be the case.
So is that the purpose in general of putting something like this together, is to get people motivated?
Absolutely. To bring awareness to what's happening. Like you said, sometimes people aren't really paying attention, and it's kind of like to bring them around and like, well, you really have to pay attention because everything, we've gone backwards in a lot of issues,
Sure.
With this administration. And if you're not really paying attention, then those kind of things can happen without you even realizing it, So it's really important for us to pay attention and to let people know. Call your legislators, call, people and let them know what you expect of them. They work for us, right? So,
Right.
You have to tell them what you think.
I remember a lot of friends saying when they were voting for him and when he was getting elected that, oh, well, Trump's not going to be bad on those things, that, he has LGBT friends, and so he's not going to be harsh on those issues. And it's like, well, but Mike Pence is, for sure.
Absolutely.
And, those guys are going to push him that way. He might maybe not even necessarily feel strongly either way about it. I think he only thinks about himself anyway.
I do too.
But, I think on those types of issues, I think he's just gonna go with, okay, if that's what you guys want me to do, I'm just gonna do it. And I the same with women. I think he's the issues about contraception and birth control, things like that, that people are kind of missing those headlines because all the guy has to do is tweet, and that's all we talk about for the next 48 hours.
And he's a master of deflection too. This whole
Sure.
wall thing is a major deflection on what's going on with the investigation and other things that he's trying to push through. It's just it's crazy that people don't. There are still some people that don't see him for what he is, and
Sure.
that boggles my mind. I don't know how that could happen.
And to share the blame a little bit, I think a lot of that involves media coverage as well, and not in the same way that our president thinks it is, with the whole fake news thing. That's a dangerous path to go down that I don't want to see, because it puts my friends and colleagues and other people who are journalists in the line of fire when you do stuff like that. Sometimes literally in certain cases.
Yeah.
And but I think the blame, I think, it has to go around of what they cover and how they cover it. I think they're so focused, even still, like they still haven't learned 2 years later after the guy got elected, that maybe not focus on every little shocking thing that he says and focus more on what's actually affecting us on a regular basis. Him saying stupid stuff is common now at this point, but him actually doing things, the Republicans actually pushing legislation, that kind of stuff, I think we need to talk about those things a little bit more.
Absolutely. But I think I'm, in a double bind about that, though, because if we ignore stuff the stupid stuff he does and says, or the offensive stuff, I should say, then do we then become desensitized to it? Do we not think it's a bad thing anymore?
Yeah.
Because we're just so used to the way he behaves. So, on the one hand, I agree with you, because the more attention he gets, that's what he likes. But I don't know what the answer to that is,
Yeah.
Other than get rid of him.
So what made you want to perform at this event?
Well, Cindy actually reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested, and I thought that it would be a great event to play. And I think, especially with everything happening now with politics and everything else, I think it's a big thing, and it means a lot to a lot of people. So I thought it would be good to do. Obviously, I'm supportive of it as well, so I think it'd be cool to
So
play.
politically, you're kind of in the same lines, I guess.
I mean, I don't follow politics that much. I mean, I can't vote yet, obviously, so
Yeah.
so I'm not really that big. I pay attention to what's happening in the world and stuff, but I don't really have that much of an opinion, I guess you could say, yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, so you're not going to be singing protest songs. Is what I'm saying. This is not that type
No.
of thing.
And I think that's okay not to have an opinion, as long as you're willing to listen and, have an open mind about things. I think that's great, so many students, they just, they know how their parents vote, what party their parents are, and that's kind of what they do, just because they don't know any different,
Right.
So, I know if my son is 20, and if he came home and told me he was a Republican, I think I would I don't know, I'd have a real problem. But, certainly he's allowed to make his own decisions. He's a grown-up now, but
Sure.
you do get a lot of pressure from your family, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it was good because my parents are kind of politically where I'm at, so and that's obviously part of there's nature nurture sort of thing. You grow up in a liberal home, you're probably going to be more liberal. Same with
Right.
conservative, that kind of thing. So I think that's part of it. But yeah, my parents were always on the pretty liberal side. And because my mom was so cool and fun to hang out with and stuff like that, I ended up becoming friends with more females than males. And to this day, I still have more female friends than I do male friends. And a lot of guys find that as an unusual thing, but a lot of guys, there's so much of the male posturing and stuff like that. And I'm just not all about that. I like to have a more intellectual conversation. You can't
Right.
always have that with the guys who just want to go out and pound beers and whatever. A lot of times I just go to shows by myself because I'm like, I don't want to deal with that part of it. I just want to enjoy music or whatever, and not focus on that kind of stuff. So speaking of which, I'll skip ahead a little bit and get to this. So I couldn't help but notice the Citizens Voice published an article on the march the other
Yes,
day.
yeah.
Which is great, but then the comments are you never read the comments, I know, but they're filled with people, going, well, who's going to do the dishes? They better get back in the kitchen, all the stupid, comments that you see on all these things. Then you go to these guys' Facebook profiles, single, divorced. I wonder why. I can't imagine. You seem like such a nice guy, But I wanted to play devil's advocate for a minute.
Okay.
And so, allow you ladies to respond to some of the commonly heard criticisms of women and events like these that I've heard or I've read, and maybe we can break down some misconceptions
Okay.
and that sort of thing. So feel free to respond how you like. So, one of the things I see already, women already have equal rights. So what are they fighting for? They're already on our level. How do you respond to that?
I respond to that by women don't have equal rights. How many women are CEOs of companies relative, in response to men? How many, what's the wages that women earn as opposed to men? It's not been that long since, some of these rights that we have come upon us, as far as like civil rights, LGBTQ rights, we're at a time that those things can be taken away as quickly as they came. And the people, I think, younger people especially, they don't really understand because they weren't around for when it was all coming about.
Right.
So sometimes I think we take our rights for granted, and not all women are created equal either. Maybe white women have that privilege,
Sure.
but people of color, women of color, might not have that privilege. There's institutional discrimination, when we're talking about where you get to live, what kind of mortgage you get, what kind of health care you get. You know, these are all things that, you know, maybe people don't see unless you're living it, you know, and maybe some of the people that are living it don't feel that they have a way to say that it's not right.
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe they just accept it because that's just the way it's always been.
Right.
You know, I mean, I've talked to people before that, you know, can speak in a calm manner about some of the experiences they've had, you know, like an African American or a woman, or, you know, someone with brown or black skin. And they're saying things and they're not angry. And I think to myself, if that was me, I would be one angry person, you know, because things just are not fair.
Yep.
And, you know, you're raised to think that, to believe that things are fair and you could work for it and you're going to get it if you work hard enough. And that's not really true.
Right.
You know, it's not really true. So, you know, we teach our children that because, you know, you kind of have to, or they wouldn't have any hope. But, you know, in reality, there's a lot of inequality in our country, in our world, and there's a lot of not fair things. And sometimes those of us that do have a little bit of privilege need to speak for those that don't, you know?
Right. I think that's it's so important because it seems like everybody's just kind of have that I got mine sort of attitude, you know. So who cares?
Right. Me and mine. Right.
Yeah, exactly. As long as I'm good, you know. And you see that with the wall debate quite a bit too. You know, it's like, well, if you put yourself in other people's shoes, you might not think that same way, but you know. So another one I see often, feminists hate men, and all they do is just want to put them down. That's all. They just want to oppress men. They want to put them down because, you know, we white men are very, very oppressed, just so you know.
There you go. There you go. Well, feminists, by definition, just want equality. You know, we want the same as a man gets. That's all there is to it, you know, and that's only fair, right? So we don't hate men. I have a husband. I have a son. I don't hate them.
You
know,
not.
right. But I think that's just a real easy way, you know, man haters, they're all man haters, you know.
Right.
An easy way to get, you know, there's just so many fake things going out. I mean, that's a really popular, you know, thing to say. You know? And, you know, sometimes in the past, you know, you didn't even want to say that you were feminist because that was like a nasty thing, you know?
Sure.
And it's really not.
But, you know, it's that psychological warfare that you hear a lot, where they take a word and they immediately make it a bad word with a bad connotation so that you can't have that word anymore. You know, and it's important for groups to take those things back and to use them in a positive way. You know, I consider myself a feminist, and guys look at me like, what, are you, like I'm a traitor or something, you know? It's like, and it's not to say that I think women are better than men. It's just that I think we all need to be on the same level. Like you said, I think there's not enough of that where people are willing to fight for the other side and to you know, reach across the aisle, so to speak.
And, you know, I'm sorry, but
no, go ahead.
When you think about it, you know, when you're not willing to listen to like a female's point of view or a female in the workplace, you know, in an authoritarian position, you're missing out on half of the ideas that you could be having, right? I mean, women do relationships differently than men. Women do work areas different than men. So if you just negate that one half, then women get a lot more stuff done, I have to tell you. Just saying.
Well, I'll tell you, through this whole mess that has been my family's life for the last like month or so, it's like the women who are really stepping up.
Yeah.
You know, like they're more or less just telling us what to do, and we're just kind of, you know, going with it. My wife especially is just very much, you know, okay, we got a checklist of these things we got to get done today, and these things are going to get done. And by the end of the day, they are done. And meanwhile, I'm walking around like,
well, because your strengths are different than hers, right? So
Sure.
you know, you kind of balance each other out.
Absolutely. Like, she doesn't want to do this kind of stuff, so that's, you know, I can handle that, you know, that end of it. But she was on camera with me the other day and did very well.
Oh, yeah.
Here's one that I see a lot, and I think it adds to what we're just talking about. The pussy hats that everybody wears, the pink hats that you've seen in all the pictures and the videos and stuff, or any of the events that you've gone to. They're stupid and vulgar, and they make women look silly or unintelligent, or they defeat the purpose of what, if you're trying to talk about serious stuff, you can't have that on your head, and that kind of thing. I always kind of saw it as just like it's like that shows that you have a sense of humor and that you're funny, especially when, guys, that's all they do is talk about dicks, like, all day, and everything is an edifice to, to penises. So, like, for once, let's give the women something. But, what do you think is the significance of the hats, or do you think it?
Well, we our president was crocheting some pussy hats for Saturday, right? Well, I think it's symbolic, look at where it stemmed from, from his behavior and what he was talking about, and and it just kind of brings attention to, we're not backing away from your, vulgarity and disrespect, and here we go, and we're just going to be proud. And I have mine from DC. I don't have much of a hat head, but maybe I'll wear it. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, so I've heard that before. But I don't see it, when we were at the D.C. March, they had big Trump heads. It was just like caricature kind of, things. So I don't think there's an issue with it at all.
Yeah, I mean, you see most protests, whether they're on either political end of the spectrum. You see a lot of funny signs and stuff like that. I think it's important to kind of have a sense of humor through all this whole thing, and like you said, kind of take back a little bit of. This is the guy who was talking about grabbing pussies, and made that a news thing. And it was so funny to see the news people struggle with that, to like, okay, do we say the word? Do we not say the word at this point? And it's out there. I think we have to talk about it. And the fact that you're squeamish talking about it says a lot about the professionalism of the man in charge here, and what we're discussing there. The last one. So women only want women to get elected because of their gender, not because they're the best candidate or will do the best job.
Well, I'm sure some people would vote for somebody just because they're a woman, because we need to get women into politics, and we have not been fairly represented. But, there's a whole lot of very strong women out there that won this last election.
Absolutely.
And, are looking towards the future, and, it's very exciting. Again, historically, we're leaving out half of the population, half of the good ideas, and to negate somebody just because of their sex is just as bad as voting for somebody just because of their sex, But, if you had a choice between a crappy man or a pretty okay woman, what are you going to pick,
Right.
We've voted for crappy men for a long time.
That's very true. A lot of it is like the lesser of two evils. You hear that every single election, essentially.
Oh, of course.
There's never anybody who's, and you know what, I think people are just kind of waiting for a perfect candidate that doesn't exist.
Right.
They're waiting for somebody who you can't shoot any holes through, and you can't pick apart any hypocrisies. Well, they said this back in 1985, and now they say this, and
they're allowed to evolve, though. I'm not the same person that I was, 10 years ago.
Sure.
And so, yeah.
I think that was a big bone of contention during the last presidential election, too, where you had, Trump won Pennsylvania and other states where they really weren't expecting him. And I think a lot of it was, was Hillary the right candidate? Was she the one that we should have put forward? And you know what? I don't know if it was so much her qualifications that people were kind of split on. It seemed to, at least in my observation, was more of her attitude and the way that she carried herself. A lot of people, I think, even liberals, friends of mine, people who would normally vote for someone like her, were like, well, she seems like she's entitled, like saying, well, I'm a Clinton, so I should just get in because I'm a Clinton and I'm owed this. I've been running for how many years? I've been, I got beat by Obama before, but I'm not, putting up with that again. I'm supposed to have this. And I think people that's what I think got them even more so than maybe some of the minutia of her politics or like what, was maybe her attitude or something like that.
Well, I think, a lot, during this time, I think people were pretty disenfranchised about politicians, and she's a politician. She represents, her husband was president, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So I think, a lot of people were looking for a change, and unfortunately that was our choice. I didn't vote for Hillary in the primaries. I wanted Bernie. I was a Bernie girl,
Bernie guy too, yeah.
But I sure as hell didn't vote for Trump.
Sure.
And I think that's where we got, kind of splintered off because some people were voting, independent because of that, and it just divided us. And he's the master of, division. So, for the upcoming presidential election, I think it's going to be really interesting how it all falls out because I'm seeing a lot of people stepping up, and when there was 150 Republicans running, it was like too many. I don't want that to happen with Democrats.
Yeah.
Because there's how many have stepped forward already? At least 7 or 8.
Right.
So.
And that's a big problem that I think led to the election results that we had. Was that conservatives are very good at putting aside the minutia and saying, all right, that's my guy. We're all just going to get together and vote for that guy. Even the people who I know for a fact were, lifelong Republicans who are like, oh, Trump is a complete idiot. He's whatever. But I'm going to vote for him anyway because he's our guy, and I'm just going to go to the polls, and he's Republican, and he's going to uphold these certain ideals, so we're just going to vote for him anyway. Meanwhile, all the liberals are fighting amongst ourselves, going, "Well, yeah, but if I can't have my candidate, I'm not going to vote for anybody at all. I'm not going to show up, or I'm going to vote for some candidate who's going to get 1,000
like
votes,
5 votes,
yeah.
yeah,
and they're not gonna get in. So and I get you want to be principled and you want to vote for the person that you really care about and you really are pushing for, but at the same time, I think. Do we really want to let that happen again? And
I hope not.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that people get hung up on a certain issue. And I think it's very important to look at the whole person and look at, you could find fault, like you said, with anyone, and throw that person away because of that, and that's very dangerous. We do have to be a little more together on things like Republicans are like that, they do.
Right. They can definitely, when you think about the ticket of Trump and Pence together, and they're polar opposites in so many ways, but they were able to come together on that and just deal with it and say, all right, I'm okay with it as long as they're, on our side, so to speak. And there's a little bit of that, I think it's too much black and white as to, you're either A or B and you can't be anything in the middle and that kind of thing. But I think you also need to think in terms of voting, who's the strongest candidate for your ideals overall? What are the things that you really care about that are going to be your big issues, going in?
They're like deal breakers for you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we saw that in the whole Kavanaugh thing,
that was horrible. Yeah.
What a mess.
That was a mess.
It's something that never would have happened on the other side, I don't think.
No, and they're not playing fair. I mean, things have been getting lost. Subtleties have been getting lost because, it blows my mind because we're called the haters.
Mm-hmm.
We're called, fake news, but in reality, we're not the haters, and we don't do, well, I'm sure there's fake news, on the other side too. I mean, we have, but for the most part, you know.
Well, you see a lot of that with the whole snowflake thing. That you guys are very sensitive and whatever. But if you can't handle any criticism of your guy whatsoever, I mean, you say anything about Trump, you say his hair looks weird, anything. Oh, you're orange man bad, blah, 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 you're making fun of my guy, blah, blah, blah. And they freak out, and they make memes, and they go crazy and whatever, and they can't handle it either. So, I that idea, I don't think holds up, holds any water at all. That there's only one side that's sensitive about stuff. And when you have guys burning Nike shoes, now you have the Gillette razor ads. If a razor ad is bothering you that much, I think that you seriously have problem. Like if that's a threat to your masculinity, a threat to your personal beliefs, any of that kind of stuff, that you obviously have your priorities screwed up. And
Did you see the commercial?
I did. I
you see
just
it?
saw it before I came.
I don't know, actually.
I saw it last night for the first time, and that would be, I mean, and then my mother's in the hospital, so this is all we do all day is watch TV.
Yeah.
And talk shows and, Good Morning America, all those kind of things, and, that's been a topic on, the hot topic, but,
Sure.
and people just generalize and think that, it means you can't be a man, you can't be, who you are. But in reality, it's just saying, don't be a goof, don't be a crappy man.
Yeah.
You could be a man, just don't be a crappy man.
Yeah, don't be a bully, don't be
an abuser, don't do bad things. That's all it's saying, it's not, that's how I raised my son, or my husband and I raised my son. That's how my husband was raised. And, it's just raising a good person. Not, particularly any gender, just a good person.
I just don't see how a guy can look at the daily news and not say, yeah, we got a little bit of a problem. You know what I mean? When most of the crime is men, when most of the men are the ones who are violent abusers, things like that we don't have an issue there.
Right.
And
the way it's posed is against women, It's like women shouldn't dress a certain way. When you go in a parking lot, make sure you have your keys in your hand, make sure you have your, blah, blah, blah. And when's the last time you heard a man, somebody tell publicly on a meme or whatever, how about don't hurt women?
Right.
How about don't, accost a woman in a parking lot, I mean.
Yeah,
So.
don't you think they kind of have they're the first ones, they're the aggressors or whatever, so they need to make the decision to not do it,
Right.
Not the other way around. Not that
Right.
the victim blaming is really
Right.
what.
And we're good at that in our society. Very
Absolutely, it's unfortunate, and they're intimidated, I think, by strong women candidates. You see that in Alexandria or Ocasio. Cortez. I want to make sure I got the pronunciation right, because it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, she's a young Democratic House candidate, was recently elected from New York. She's been making waves, kind of shooting down a lot of the guys who have been there a long time and stuff like that. She's doing great. But what the first thing I saw about her when she first started coming out, and she was running and everything, and she was kind of making headlines, immediately was somebody found a video of her talking about the branches of government, and she made a gaffe, screwed it up, she couldn't name one of the branches or something to that effect. And then they focused on, and then the meme became, she's stupid and she doesn't know what she's talking about. And that, to this day, is all they can say about her. Now, mind you, that you'd have to ignore tons of evidence that she's intelligent,
Right.
that she's smart, that she knows what she's talking about, that she's well-researched with the stuff that she says, to believe that. But you have people who do believe it, And
Because that's what they want to believe.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were saying before. I think, you plant it in people's heads that it's one thing, and then it's that forever,
Well, he said that at the beginning, if you say something often enough, people believe it.
Right.
It becomes the truth,
Yeah.
and we see that over and over again with the stuff that comes out of his, mouth.
Unfortunately, yeah. But yeah, she's I think a standout. But there's other ones too. There's plenty of female candidates, a lot of female candidates of color, who've been making waves, and you know, do you, you know, the other thing too is, you know, locally, we kind of, I think, have an uphill battle in terms of progressives or Democrats or whatever, because this area has put out its share of lame ducks. It's put out its share of people who have gone to jail. I mean, now the mayor of Scranton has an FBI probe. They're busting into his house. They're going into the court. Like, and every time you see, well, you should have voted Republican, which then I immediately say, well, wasn't the last one Republican? You know, Munchak and Cordero, like that was only a few years ago. Remember that? Like they were Republicans and very, very conservative Republicans who were more than happy to go on about all those guys when that was going down. But then you turn it around and then it's like, oh yeah, forget all about that. You know, it's the Dems that are corrupt. So I think, you know, in an area like this, Trump really spoke to people because they feel like their candidates haven't gotten anything done for them. So how do you guys, you know, as a grassroots organization that's trying to get people pumped up about voting for these people, how do you get them interested or get to know these candidates in a way that makes sense to them as voters? Because, you know, I think most people look at them and say, they're lame. They've never done anything for me. I'm as poor as I was 10 years ago. So obviously that guy has been in office for how many years? He hasn't done anything for me. How do you get people interested and motivated?
Well, this last election, we spent some time researching the positions of the different candidates, and we endorsed certain candidates over others, you know. And there was some controversy over that, you know, because obviously we want Democrats in, but
Right.
we also want to be known as an organization that is going to hold our politicians accountable, you know. So if you're voting not in the, you know, in a good way, you know, not for, you know, what the people need, then we're going to call you out on that, you know. So, you know, we're hoping that in time, and we have great relationships with a lot of different, you know, political figures in the area, that we hope, you know, we will get to a point where they're vying for our support because we have a presence and we have a following and we want progress. You know, we want some real change in our area. It is a pretty conservative area, you know, and it was really disheartening for me when all this stuff starts coming out. It's like, wow, these people, there's that many people that think like that, you know.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I find myself on Facebook sometimes. Most of the time I try to, you know, behave and just, you know, look and read. But sometimes I can't help myself. I'm like, you should be ashamed of yourself. You know, it's 2019. When do we stop hating people because of how they look? When do we stop doing that? You know, I mean, aren't we ahead? You know, aren't we better than that? But obviously, not all of us are. You know.
Right.
And that's very sad, I think.
What do you know, and this is a question for both of you, what do you think are the biggest concerns or obstacles that women have to get through in this day and age in 2019 and going forward?
You want to say?
I'll let you answer first.
I just think that, you know, people need to stop thinking like, you know, their father or their grandfather, you know, that women should just be in the home and having babies and, you know, start thinking of women as people that have opinions, that have talent, that have skills that we could offer, you know. Again, you know, you're missing out on half of the population. You know, why would you cut yourself short like that, you know? All because you can't think about a woman as being somebody that's equal to you.
Right.
You know, and that's, again, you know, very sad. My upbringing is a lot like yours, I think. You know, my father was a big union guy. My mother is the strongest woman I know. She raised 3 girls to be independent and self-sufficient. And, you know, if you have a partner, that's awesome. If you don't, you don't need them. You can do it all on your own. You know, that's how we were raised. And I believe, you know, that's a good way to feel. You know, it's a good way to live because you have your own, you know, you find your own way in this world, you know?
Right, which, you know, you tend to think is, oh, that's a very conservative thing. You find your own way and stuff like that, but it's not. It's also a very liberal thing too. I think that's something that both sides can agree on. That we do need to take charge of our own lives and our own selves, and you know, move forward with the things that we believe in, and not expect somebody else to do it for them. And I think a lot of that brainwashing that you see on both sides, but especially on the conservative end, that liberals just want everything handed to them and stuff, and that's totally not the case.
No, but I mean, there's some people that you have to, give a leg up to, because they don't have equal standing.
Right.
I, as a white woman, have privilege. I mean, no, I'm not, rolling in the dough or anything, but, somebody with the same experiences as me that is a person of color might not be where I am, and that's not fair,
Right.
And so, to level the playing field, sometimes you have to help people out, because that's what America is supposed to be about, People come here to, live the American dream, to when my grandparents came over, I guess that would be third generation, because my grandparents came from the old countries, and, they found their way, and just like these people are trying to find their way now, too, I think another thing that we have to, fight against, too, is, Trump is big on saying, we don't want any immigration laws, we just want to open the doors and let them all roll in, That's not true.
Right.
But there's a lot of better ways to do things than spending billions of dollars on a stupid wall.
That's going to be completely ineffective.
It is, I mean, even, we know, didn't they just find, like, several tunnels?
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, and, drugs get airdropped all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and they come in, from the coast. So, what are we going to do? Put a roof on there? I know people were laughing about that on Facebook. Let's put a roof on. We need a roof.
Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
people don't realize, most people come over here legally on a temporary visa, and then they just stay. They overstay the visa, and then they're just here already. They don't have to cross over that border in that traditional sense that we think, or they fly here. They're on a plane. What are you going to do? Build a wall up into heaven?
Well,
it's just not realistic.
Right. And those people, those poor people that were, seeking asylum, that's a whole different ball game,
Right.
I mean, they were villainizing those people who were just trying to save their children, be safe.
Something that any parent here would do.
Oh my God, yeah.
But
They
again,
deserve it. They're willing to put their kids in that.
That's,
Oh my God. Can you put your feet in somebody else's shoes and see what you would do in that situation? That's all it takes.
sure, absolutely. Well, what about you? Do you have particular feelings on this, or maybe you can speak a little on your generation, because obviously I'm a little older.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, me personally, I don't really know. Like I said, I don't really know that much. I think my generation is just kind of, I think like you said before, they're just kind of listening to their parents, and I think now we're slowly breaking away from that, and kind of everybody's kind of getting their own opinion now, and it's just kind of everything's a big meme, so everybody's following what's online and stuff, and what everybody
Right.
sees online, and it's just that's pretty much how it goes with my generation. The internet plays a big role in what my generation believes, and so I think that's where that stands. But.
I think too that you guys haven't experienced some of the things, or don't know about some of the things, like when they're talking universal health care and
Yep.
those kind of things, and everybody's like, communism. Well, you guys don't think of it as communism, because your experience, I think, is that you see other countries that do it, and it's working out pretty well for them. When like our parents
Yeah.
were in that era.
Yeah,
where,
we think about the Cold War, and we think about Russia being enemies, and characters in movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The bad guy was always had a Russian accent and stuff like that. So I think people have that still kind of stuck in their head of what communist means. And it's funny that they have this like cognitive dissonance with that they're very unaccepting of that, but a guy who's very friendly with Putin and says nothing about nice things about the leader of Russia, that's okay and that's not suspicious at all whatsoever. But anything that's considered universal health care, or like communistic in their eyes, which is not, socialist. You hear socialist is a dirty word, and that's another one that doesn't mean, it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean a dirty thing, but people treat it as
and they, and they don't understand that we have a lot of socialist programs right now. Are fixing our roads. All kinds of programs that are out there to help everyone are the programs that we're talking about.
Right, exactly. Stuff that most people would benefit from, and they don't even realize it.
That's right.
Young do young females, are they going through the same things that you think the other generations of females are going through?
I think so. I think so for the most part. I don't think much has changed. I think that we're still going through the same struggles that that's always been around. So.
Unfortunate.
Especially if your parents are, like old-fashioned kind of, roles as far as, men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's not just your generation that I think is growing up on the memes, but now you have the adults sharing them too. And then, I like a good meme just as much as the next guy, but a lot of this stuff is, especially when it gets in the political realm, it's very boiled down to almost like a joke from a bad comedian, and it's it's a very, very oversimplified version of complicated issues. And I think that's the big problem, is that most of these issues that we're talking about here and stuff that we can't even get into tonight are so complicated, and there's so many layers and things to discuss and other sides to look at, that you can't just boil it down to a catchy meme or a punchline in a joke or something like that. Like, it sounds really good. You see like Louis C.K., who's a total fucking scumbag, coming back, saying this shit in his jokes, and it's very much, he's a guy who liked to push to the edge and stuff, and we've talked a lot about political correctness on this show, and that's a whole other issue altogether. I'm a very politically incorrect guy. I like politically incorrect comedians, and that used to be a very liberal thing, and now it's more of a like the conservatives are like, it's almost, we've switched sides, where the conservatives are now like, we should be able to say whatever we want. And it's like, well, you shouldn't be able to just call people this or that because you want to, because free speech. But then, on the other side, you have liberals who are like trying to police what you can and can't say or talk about. And I think that's maybe another place where the liberals are a little weak. If, I could give the other side something tonight, I could definitely say that. I think we're too focused on what, the minutia of words and stuff like that.
Well, I think, both sides have fringe elements, that, are kind of fanatical.
Yes.
And I think, a lot of stuff we agree on, I talked to some of my family members who are, they still like Trump, and I want to understand, because we're in the same family, and, I know you're a good person,
Right,
So how is it that you see that and I see this, and, there's a lot of things that, we feel the same way about, but, I think there's, a lot of things we don't too.
Yeah, and I think we do need to find more of the common ground and see those types of things, and see people for people, as you said. A lot of that is, like you see that fight, especially now in the LGBT community, with transgender issues now being a very big thing. It's like, it seems like we got over one hurdle a little bit with like marriage equality and stuff like that, which is something they're working to pull away from us now. Yeah. So pay attention to that as well.
Absolutely.
But now the debate is that, and it comes down to like people's feelings on it are so are not nuanced whatsoever. Like, you see a video of a woman throwing a fit in a GameStop, and then that's something that I'm gonna believe everything about transgender people now based on this one clip that, you know, I mean, when it came out, it was like, is it even real? You know, because now we have this day and age where you have guys who are staging things, putting it on a tape, then sharing it like it's a viral thing that was filmed by somebody's phone, and then you wonder, is it even real or not? Like, it's sad that we have to kind of question reality as much as we do, but there's an agenda to that kind of stuff, and there's an agenda to the person who shared that video, I'm sure, and it wasn't just oh, isn't this funny that somebody's throwing a fit in a store, because you can find plenty of straight people and plenty of everyday people doing the exact same thing, and that's okay. But you know, this person does it. Now we've gone. You know, the debate goes in a way that it shouldn't. You know, we're focused on those types of things instead of actually, you know, talking to transgender people on a level that makes them human.
Absolutely, I agree.
But before we wrap up tonight, I do want to talk about your music a little bit too. So, you know, we'll put the politics and stuff aside for a minute. Now, you have a couple songs recorded that I saw online.
I do, yeah.
Do you have an EP or a CD or anything coming out?
Well, we're not really sure what it's going to be right now. We're working more towards, I think, a demo at this point, I think, so just a couple of songs. We do have a couple. We've been just releasing one at a time just because it's a lot of just trial and error right now, just not knowing what's going to work with us and what's going to sound good, and so far we've gotten a good response though, so I think we're gonna stick with what we're doing. But yeah, I'm gonna try to work on just like a demo, I guess. Just call it "I'm Coming Home" for the single that we released.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So and your band's name is Tori V and the X's?
And the ex-boyfriends.
Ex-boyfriends.
Yeah. And no, they're not actually ex-boyfriends. But, yeah, we thought that name would be pretty creative. So.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like a Scott Pilgrim kind of thing. You ever see that movie?
I can't say I did. I don't know.
Okay, well look it up. But it's this guy has to fight all this girl's ex-boyfriends to become her boyfriend. It's like relationships made into a video game. It's hilarious.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
So why that name?
I mean, because originally we've gone through a couple of different member changes now in the band and stuff, and it was just me. I'm the lead singer with 5 other guys, so it was like Tori V and the ex-boyfriends. That's perfect,
Yeah.
So they came up with it. They brought it to me. They're like,
okay. That's
they're
fine.
like, yeah. I mean, I didn't come up with it at all, and I was actually pretty. At first, I'm like, really? I'm like, are you serious? But yeah, so then I guess it kind of just grew, and then the more people we told, they thought it was great. So I was like, all right, this is our name. So.
So what inspires you as a songwriter? What are your songs about, the ones that people are out now?
Well, the first one we released actually really means a lot. That kind of, I think when I wrote that, the one day I sat down, I was just really angry about everything that transpired in this industry and stuff that you're working with, and the people that you have to go through and stuff, and just the ins and outs of how everything works. And I just experienced so much of that, and I think I was really angry, and I wrote that song as a story, and it just grew into something really great. And I think that's a lot of the songs that I'm writing is just stuff that has happened, and which I think that's any songwriter, stuff that you've experienced, you write what you know. And that's kind of where I came with what I'm working with right now. I think just a lot of emotions.
Is that also true of the stuff that you're working on now that will be coming up in the future?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is staying the same. It's just all of my emotions put into songs, I think, and that's a lot of the stuff that's going to be coming out is stuff that I've even written years ago that I could still relate to now, and I think a lot of other people can relate to too. So I think that's where we stand on that. Yeah.
Towards the end of last year, we had a guy, Joe Burke. I don't know if you know him. He's a young guy.
Yeah, I
we
know.
had
I love
him on this on the show to talk about his CD and stuff like that. And he said that the Tony's Wine Cellar stuff was very important to him. The open mic that they have there, and doing that. And I saw you also performed there as well. Was that a positive outcome for you on that?
Well, that was for a short time, I think.
Okay.
That was a while ago, a short time, and then I wasn't there very long. I wasn't involved there very much. And then I think I kind of broke off and just went my own direction in my own career and started playing my own shows and just doing a lot of solo stuff. And I met some other musicians, and that's how I got, my recording stuff started and with the band and everything. So that was only for a very short time, I think. So.
You have a very busy schedule. I see you have a lot of shows.
Yeah,
and
a
stuff.
lot going on actually. Yeah.
With your and being a young age, is been a challenge to get gigs and stuff and find places that are willing to have somebody underage play and that kind of thing.
Well, for the most part, my parents have to go with me most of the time. Because
Okay.
I was actually telling Cindy this earlier. I have a junior license still, so
Okay.
I can't drive past 11, which that's a hassle for most places because they have you play 8 to 11, if not 9 to midnight. But as far as getting shows, I mean, I've had some issues along the way, but most places are okay with it. You know what I mean? So as long as I have a parent there, then it's okay. So.
But by the time you're in your 20s, it'll be old hat at this point. You'll know how to book everything.
Hopefully, yeah. That's the plan, I think.
Is this something you want to pursue as a career or just a side thing? Or?
No, absolutely. I think I'd want to go all the way with it. You know what I mean? Just to get as far as possible and have as many people hear my music as possible. I think that's the goal at this point. And just try to push for as much as possible.
Awesome. Now, is your approach for this for the march going to be any different than a typical gig for you?
I think I have some different song choices in mind than just a regular bar gig, but most of it is just stuff people know and just make sure that everybody has a good time and is enjoying being there. So,
excellent.
We're very excited to have her.
Yeah.
I could see that your name was on the Facebook event and everything, so you guys are pushing that. How did you hear about her?
Well, it's funny. We were just talking about that. I was at a bar with my friend, and she was playing, and I thought she was awesome, and so I grabbed a card, asked her for a card, and then when we were talking about getting some talent for the march, I brought her name up, and a couple of the other people were very excited because they had gone to see her before.
Oh, okay.
I only caught like 1 or 2, 1.5 songs actually, but I was really impressed with her. So we all were in agreement that we really wanted to try to, get her to join us for the day. So we were happy that she's.
Yeah, you've got a great voice, so make sure
Thank
that
you.
you push on that and continue to go forward with your plans there. Don't get discouraged. I know
No.
it's a big
It's
thing when this.
a
area.
tough industry, seriously.
That's a
oh
tough
my
industry
God.
for women too, right?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. I mean, it very rarely. I mean, you see a lot more guys in bands rather than you never see like girls. Very rarely you see girl lead guitarists and stuff, and that's something I'm really big on too. I kind of think that I'd like to think that I stand out on that too. Like it's very rarely have I run into like a female guitarist or a female lead singer and stuff. In a popular band in this area, a lot of it is guys. So yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Like when I put the I didn't put the benefit together. Friends of mine put the benefit together, and then we had everybody sitting on the couch. I'm like, oh my God, this is a sausage party. It's one female representation. So I always make sure that we go out of our way to have more females on the show and stuff like that whenever we can. There's a lot of great act. Kali Ma, the Garland of Arms stands out. There's a few of them that really have great female leads out front there that are doing great, and in the past as well. Let's plug the march one more time, and then we'd love to hear a song from you as well to kind of end the show.
Yeah, awesome.
So it's this Saturday.
This Saturday, 11 o'clock, and starts at Kirby, and will end on the public square. So we should be done marching, I'm thinking, by 1:30, and that's when Tori's going to be our first person to perform on the square at 1:30.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we have a lot of participants. You don't have to be a woman to come. Everybody's allowed to come.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be a good time. I'm very excited. We're very excited.
And even if you don't agree, I think you should come and kind of see what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Have a discussion. Don't be throwing stuff and holding up nasty signs or anything like that. Actually have a conversation like we had here. Nancy Volz had a great song. She said she'll also take your beers since you can't drink. Well, I was here waiting for you, so come on down. thank you all so much for everybody who tuned in tonight and heard the discussion. Wasn't as I thought we might get some some differing opinions and stuff like that. I'm sure we will after once this isn't live and I can't respond anymore. Then we'll get some trolls and stuff. Once we upload it to YouTube, that's where the trolls really lie. You look at the Gillette ad, for example. There's like the down to up vote ratio is ridiculous. Like down votes are like, and it's just flooded with those types of guys. It's just it's so bad. I mean, I'm sure half of them are fake accounts anyway, but still. But thank you for having a serious discussion. And if the other side wants to come on, I am more than willing to talk to you guys too. This isn't just we're doing this just so that I can plug something that I agree with. I'm always willing to hear the other side or hear other. That's what half of the show is about, is hearing different perspectives and learning new things about people and talking to people you maybe wouldn't normally talk about. And getting out of your comfort zone a little bit. So I'm in my comfort zone on this one, more than willing to go on the other side, but you have to be willing to come on and talk too.
That's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you wanna finish with a song tonight?
Yeah, absolutely.
Grab your guitar. I will get out of the way here.
Oh, do I need to move too?
Yeah, if you want to come up.
Let me know when I'm ready. Am I good?
You're good. If you want to introduce the song, maybe?
Yeah, this is an original song called I'm Coming Home. It's on major streaming services like Spotify and iTunes and all those other things. So check it out.
Spent a long time on this road, and I don't know where it goes. You think I'd be used to this by now? Maybe figure out what this is about. I'm used to being alone, but I've never been on home tonight. And baby,